Hi all, welcome to my channel. I'm Will Wyvern. Today I want to talk about 10 things you can do this Samhain. As always, these are my thoughts, my beliefs. I share them with you to give you ideas on how you can work in your practice. And Samhain, one of my favorite sabbats. It's the halfway mark between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. And I think this is an important time because the veil is thin. Some say the veil is the thinnest, and it's the veil between our realm and other realms. So everything you do on Samhain, you can do honoring your ancestors, honoring other creatures from other realms, because the veil is thinnest. Almost every culture all around the world has some type of celebration or practice where they honor and respect their ancestors, because throughout time, man has known that this time, fall to winter, these few months, the veil is thinnest. They can hear their ancestors louder. They can see creatures from other realms. This is a special time. And so Samhain is a great time to do things honoring your ancestors. Now, the first thing I suggest that you can do is just very simply light a candle. Find a candle, light it, and just think about your ancestors so they're not forgotten. Think about your parents if they've passed, your grandparents, your favorite aunt or uncle, cousins who might have passed. And then try to think back as far as you can to ancestors you've known who have passed. And just look at the candle and just remember them in your mind. Just take a few minutes to honor them, to remember them. That means so much to our ancestors because our ancestors don't want to be forgotten. And Samhain, Day of the Dead, whatever you're celebrating, you can honor your ancestors. Because once you've passed, you don't want to be forgotten by your children or your descendants. You want people to remember you, the knowledge you passed on, or the stories you shared. So take a moment, light a candle. The next thing you can do, walk in nature. Just take a walk outside. And if you don't live near a park or the woods, just take a walk outside your backyard, or find some place where there's grass and just sit out and admire the trees and the beauty of nature. Because after Samhain, fall is happening in a lot of places right now. Even snow is on the ground in some places. So Samhain is a great time to look at those trees, look at the greenery, enjoy nature, because for the next couple months, it's going away. The snow is going to fall, the leaves are going to fall, it's going to be dark, you're not going to see all that greenery until spring again. So use Samhain to honor the earth. Look at that greenery for one last time. Enjoy nature. Something else you can do, since the veil is thinnest, you can try divination. If divination doesn't work for you, or if divination does work for you, try something different. If you've never been able to use tarot cards, if they've just never worked for you, try something like runes. Get a nice set of runes, make your own set, buy a set, and try runes. If runes don't work for you or tarot, try something like a pendulum or a spirit board, a Ouija board. Just try something different, because the veil is thinner. So our ancestors and other realm creatures, they can come through easier. And it's easier for them to make contact with us. It's easier for them to share messages. So try divination. See if that works. Something else you can do, visit a graveyard or a cemetery. Something that you don't necessarily have to know anyone who's buried there, but just walk around. Just admire the beauty, the quiet, the solitude. And as you walk around, read the names out loud of the gravestones that you pass. That's a way of honoring those who have died. It doesn't have to be your ancestors. You can just honor people who have died. Walk through the graveyard and read the tombstones out loud. Take a moment, just, their birthday, when they passed, their name, if there's something in there like beloved father, beloved son, whatever, just read that, and then just, kind of give a nod to the person and let them know someone remembers them. Someone is reading their name. and that is a way to honor the dead. That's something else you can do. That's something else that you can do on Samhain. Something else, you could, I've got a list here, I'm trying to see what I got. Divination, visit graveyard, cook a family recipe. If there's an old recipe that's been passed down through generations, go ahead and cook up some old family recipe that you've enjoyed, or maybe even one that you haven't tried yet that you want to try. But that's a way to honor your ancestors. You know, that grandmother who made a sweetbread, or that one aunt who made the best apple pie. Just honor your ancestors. Or if you can find out, if you know what your culture is, try something from the past, from your culture. If you're Irish, try making an Irish stew or a roast beef or something. If you're Italian, try making an Italian dish. Something that your ancestors would have made, that's something you can try to do. Another thing, since it is Samhain, the veil is thin, other creatures from other realms are going to come into ours. And these creatures, I call them Fae. And these are everything from fairies to gnomes to unicorns to Bigfoot to just all these mystical creatures. When they come through from other realms, they assume shapes and descriptions to fit in with our society, with our culture, with our space, around the woods. And so by acknowledging the Fae creatures and not necessarily appeasing them or giving them gifts, but something you can do is take little pieces of bread and dip them in milk or honey or cover them in butter and put those little bits of bread at the corner of your property. And the reason why I've been taught to put these at the corner of your property instead of along the fence line or the gate is when these creatures are out roaming around, since the veil is thinner, and they come to the corner of your property, they can smell these gifts, they can smell the offerings that you're putting out, they're going to take them. And instead of going around the fence or instead of entering your property, they're going to turn around and walk out into the bigger space. And your corner of your property is going to be a 90-degree angle. There's 270 degrees for them to go. So instead of going in that small little space of 90 degrees, they're going to explore that 270 degrees around from that corner. So that's a good idea. If you don't want the Fae coming into your property, or if you just want to give the Fae a welcome gift for, while they're visiting our realm, since the veil is thinner, you can do that. Something else you can do during Samhain. Bring out the heirlooms. Like everybody's got an old watch or a set of dishes or some old photographs or whatever. Whatever heirlooms you have, things that your ancestors used and they've passed, instead of leaving them in a drawer or in a safety deposit box or put up in a shelf somewhere, take out those heirlooms. Set them out. Let people look at them. Tell the stories. Tell the history, about these items. We've got a watch in my family that all we know is it comes from 2 generations back. We don't know who it came from, if it was our grandfather, our uncle, a great uncle, whoever. We just know it was a watch that was in our family 2 generations back. We've lost that history. We've lost that story. So you need to share those stories with your children, with your friends, with your family. Let everybody know what that heirloom is. Let everyone know what that heirloom represents, the stories behind it, because that's another way to respect and honor your ancestors. So bring out those heirlooms. Something else you can do. Draw a picture. Paint a picture. Get out your kids' crayons or watercolors, or if you've got some paints of your own, and just sit down. Sit quietly, think about your favorite relative who's passed, your favorite ancestor, be it your grandfather who, loved to fish, or your aunt who loved to sew, or, whatever. Just think of, an ancestor who's passed and sit down and just draw a picture. Draw a picture of them doing their favorite hobby, or draw a picture of them while they're, chopping wood or knitting a sweater or making bread on Sunday morning. Whatever they did, just draw a picture. It's a way to remember your ancestors, remember what they did in life, let them know you haven't forgotten them. It doesn't have to be a Picasso or a Leonardo da Vinci, just something simple, a few lines so you know what you're looking at, and let your ancestors know you're remembering them. Another thing, I kind of covered this already, but something that is very important is sharing stories, sharing names, sharing information. A lot of people, they may know their parents' names, but they have no idea what their grandparents' names are. They don't know who their grandparents, brothers and sisters, their great aunts and uncles were. They have no idea of who these people are. They don't know where their grandparents came from. They don't know, what their grandfather did for a living. Your children, you need to pass this information on to your children. They may not be interested, or they may be like, I don't care, blah, blah. But as long as you share that knowledge, you're honoring your ancestors. You're letting them know they are not forgotten. And it's important to share that information. And the last thing you can do is do research to fill in those gaps. I'm not telling you to go out and spend, $100 for Ancestry.com membership or to buy a DNA test. But if you can afford it, do that. Buy a DNA test or join Ancestry.com. And I think there are, plenty of free genealogy sites out there where people like to share information. And do some research. You don't have to spend hours or days or weeks doing this, but just, take 5, 10, 15 minutes and learn the names of your great-grandparents. Learn where your, great-grandparents came from, when they came to, whatever country you live in now. If you live in America, find out when they came to America. If you live in Italy, but you've got some relatives from, Spain, find out when they came to Italy. Just do a little bit of research. Your ancestors will appreciate it. You'll appreciate it because knowledge is power. The more knowledge you have, you can find out where you came from, what your culture is, what your past is. And that's going to help you in your practice. Because in your practice, if you use cultural items, if you honor your history and your where you come from, your ancestors, it's going to be more powerful, the magic that you use when you call on your ancestors for help or when you try divination. The more knowledge you have, if I found out that I'm Scandinavian and I found out I'm more Celtic than anything else. So I can tie Celtic beliefs and the Celtic gods and goddesses into my practice. I can research Scandinavian history and lore and use that in my practice. And that's something that is tied to me. That's part of my DNA. That's who I am. So that's what you can do during Samhain. Ancestor worship, honoring your ancestors, sharing knowledge, honoring the Fae, the creatures from other realms, sharing history with your family, all things you can do. I wish you a fantastic Samhain. I wish you a blessed Samhain, and I hope this is the greatest Samhain you've ever had. Enjoy, have fun, and as always, thank you.